Within 2 years of the titular film, Tim Burton and Canadian animation studio Nelvana worked together to create the Beetlejuice TV show, featuring the talent of Alison Court and Stephanie Lamette, who voices Lydia and Beetlejuice respectively. Both are incredibly talented, and you might know them from X-Men 1992. The two are incredibly great in their roles, which is saying something when one of their roles sounds like they smoke 4 packs of cigarettes every single day. The rest of the supporting cast, likewise, is also really great to listen to, and there's no one that feels like a weakling. Let me say this, the show is not the movie in any way. Now, if you're a fan of the movie and a fan of animation, you will most likely adore this show. However, the two aren't related in any other way except for the original IP itself. Instead, it follows the plot of BJ as he commits pranks in both the Neitherworld and the Otherworld and the hijinks that ensue with that. The beginning of the season made me think that Lydia was going to be the main character, but it becomes very clear very fast that the writers have no intention of making her so, which is perfect because it allows for a lot more options and stories when your main character is an undead ghost who's capable of doing ridiculous feats.
It is the double deluxe one tosser! He's topping it off with his well-known demon dandruff!
Now in the movies, BJ's and Lydia relationship is a little bit iffy on ethics. However, in the TV show, the two act as best friends completely, and more of a straight man and eccentric combo.
This disgusting creep is my best friend.
Yeah!
Another point going for the bizarre duo is the fact that Lydia still has the ability to say his name 3 times and send him back to the Neitherworld, so the power dynamic still remains in her favor.
Oh no, that does it!
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice!
Let me say this, the show is not the movie. Now, if you're a fan of the movie and you're also a fan of animation as a whole, you will likely adore this combination. However, it's not related to each other in any meaningful way except for the source IP. Instead, the show's more about Beetlejuice and his prankster antics in both the Neitherworld and the Otherworld.
Spaghetti? Oh, I love pulling pranks with spaghetti! I know I promised I wouldn't, but how can a meatball like me resist?
Now, originally, when I first started watching the episodes, I thought Lydia was going to be the main character and BJ more of her side pet. But in actuality, the writers have no intention of loaning themselves to her, which allows for a lot more meaningful plots and a lot more interesting situations to be put in when BJ, an undead, incredibly powerful trickster, is capable of doing anything he wants. It feels more like a goofy sitcom about a trickster demon, and Lydia is unfortunate enough to play the character of reason. Without Lydia, this show probably couldn't be packaged and sold for children because she's the only thing that grounds it. Very genuinely, I don't think this show would have come out after the Children's Television Act of 1997. BJ is crass, gross, a complete bum, and honestly, the love of my life. I don't know what it is about the ghost with the most, but he's got it. It's probably that beetle breath. Lydia, to the contrary, is sweet and pathetic and positively the most cheerful goth I have ever seen. She will get out of bed with the greatest attitude, put on some kick-ass emo clothes, and will have a shred of the sadness I had at her age.
I look great today!
Speaking of, based on comments that are in the show, I think she's around 13, and she met Beetlejuice when she was 12 or so, or when she was starting 6th grade. Now, if you go from the movie to this show, it's a little bit jarring, but their relationship has been completely reworked, so now that they're a straight man-eccentric combo, with Beetlejuice playing the silly best friend, and Lydia being the one who has to clean up after his messes. The show is both 11-minute and 23-minute episodes, but today we're going to talk about the very first one, Critter Sitters. So sit back, relax, and listen to me as I regale a tale that can only be described as fair use. BJ is headed to the Neitherworld Shopping Mall to pick up a gift for he and Lydia's best friend anniversary.
Well, here I am at the Neitherworld Shopping Mall with grossness wall to wall.
BJ, unfortunately, much like myself, is penniless, and as such needs to find some way to make the money.
You know what I am, kids? I'm flat broke.
We then transition to Lydia on her way home, who, unlike BJ, is not a complete bum and gets herself a job. She, in case you couldn't guess from the name of the episode, is going to be a babysitter. BJ likes this idea so much that he opts to become one himself, make a little extra money, and then buy Lydia her gift.
I'll have a present for Lydia in a couple of squats.
Now, BJ unfortunately doesn't understand the actual concept of babysitting, and as such called on Lydia to help him out. It becomes apparent that BJ has an ability where whatever he says, reality warps to fit, typically when it involves some sort of bit or joke or pun.
I'm fit as a fiddle, strong as an ox. I get a kick out of life!
But so on accident, BJ compares himself to the small children and inadvertently turns himself into one. Or at least a smaller one than he already is.
I'm really babysitting now!
Lydia does everything in her power to keep everyone safe until she can turn BJ back to normal, and after doing so, BJ immediately tries to weasel his way out of any trouble. The cops are called in, he gets thrown in court, and then Lydia comes to defend him.
I object, Your Honor.
He and Lids actually sing an original music number, and yet it's still not enough to save the day. BJ is exiled for his crimes to Sandworm Land. Unfortunately, the child that Lydia is babysitting ends up falling in too. So BJ, who's both on top of the Sandworm on accident, is also then goaded by Lydia to save the child.
Who's gonna save me?
Come on! You say you're the ghost with the most! Prove it!
After successfully doing so, the court no longer wants to convict him, and the two are set free. They return home the day one, exchanging gifts.
Wow, just what I needed. A new pair of pants.
The camera pulls out to an establishing shot to remind you of the strange and unusual setting that this show is going to mostly take place in. All in all, it's a really great episode. It kind of shows you the formula of events, Beetlejuice doing something he shouldn't, getting into a bit of trouble, needing Lydia's help to get out, and also both his ability to say words into life and also create mayhem out of almost nothing. The show features two unique sets of side characters due to the nature of hopping worlds. Kind of like how you know who you're going to run into when Timmy Turner goes to Fairy World. Think Jorgen von Strangle or Anti-Cosmo. So, let's start with the other world. We have Charles and Delia Dietz. Charles Dietz is a very hands-off father, doesn't want to be too involved with anything, coined the expression happy wife, happy life.
Lydia lies!
Oh, Delia's cooking.
Delia Dietz, they do a really good job on making her her own kind of character. She's obviously based off the one from the movies, but does have some unique qualities to her and doesn't feel like a direct ripoff.
Where's the problem?
Under the sink trying to fix the leak.
Lydia attends Miss Shannon's School for Girls, which is honestly one of the first direct comparisons to the movie, and as such, that allows for three characters that are around her age. Her two offbeat, nerdy best friends, Prudence and Bertha, I couldn't tell you which is which because they function exactly the same, but what I can tell you is this one has wonky ass legs and that one's just kind of annoying. And then we have what has to be perhaps one of the best characters in the show, Claire. She is your classic Nepo baby, rich, popular kid, except what really makes her pop, is she has the most annoying voice, which is a complete credit to the voice actor. And then on top of that, she has her own custom score that plays every time she enters into a scene, which every single time, and it just takes so long. You can even see it in like the very first shot that she's ever in, and she's just like spends 30 minutes walking into scene so that both her score can play and she can finish her goddamn speech.
Lydia, star in a play? Why, you'd have to pay people to come. Face it, I'm the only one with enough star quality to play Julia. That's Juliet.
Her character is used excellently to manufacture classic sitcom tropes between her and Lydia, and she can be a little repetitive at times, but ultimately I really enjoy what she contributes to the show. Okay, now it's time for Neitherworld denizens. Now there are dozens and dozens of them, but we're going to focus on the ones that interact with Beetlejuice fairly regularly. Even in death, housing is expensive, so BJ lives with his two roommates in BJ's Roadhouse, which is coincidentally the name of my porn production company. There's Jacques Laline, a French skeleton with aspirations of becoming a bodybuilder, and Ginger, a tap dancing spider who seems more like a showgirl. Now, between you and I have a suspicion that BJ and Jock are either going to date or have already dated, because there's an episode called A, Skeletons in the Closet, and B, in that episode, it's revealed that BJ does in fact like Jock when he doesn't like most anyone else in the Neitherworld. So, look, I don't know, it's just my headed canon for now. Another character of note is the monster across the street. You might have guessed, he's BJ's neighbor. He kind of looks like the uncle to Gossamer, and he must be based off him in some way because the comparison is just too uncanny. But I love his name and I love his character.
It's the monster across the street.
Hey, Beetlejuice, did you bother my dog?
Something I'm sure you've noticed by now just by looking at them, but each of the character designs in the Neitherworld are just incredible, especially with one-off characters, because they can design them however they want to because they don't have to be consistent with it, and it just makes for a really entertaining watch experience. And some honorable mentions because there's just so many. I Am Smallhead, he's some sort of bureaucrat, I want to say the mayor's aide. Prince Vince, 12-year-old angsty kid who makes me wonder how the politics in this universe actually work. And then we have, honestly, the sandworms with how often they show up as a plot device. So, represent. The cast is so eclectic and it never really repeats itself. You can't help but be just entranced with both the foreground and the background set of characters. And honestly, BJ himself is a great example of this because he has so many different personas and forms that he takes throughout the show, such as Beetlejuice and Mr. Beetleman, that it just never grows stale.
Trim your toenails! Hey!
This show's music is just absolutely incredible. They got Danny Elfman to recompose it for the TV show, which means it's all both his original work and still adapted work to make it even better, even more fitting. All of the characters have their own original themes that are really great. The noise that is just happening during the show helps put you into that atmosphere and that environment, and he just kills it.
Hi there. Could you tell me which way to the beach?
Likewise, the sound design works wonderfully. It's really important when you make an animated show, especially one that mimics Looney Tunes so much, to have every piece make a noise so that the audience members feel like what they're seeing is actually happening. Think Tom and Jerry without the sound of the frying pan hitting Tom's face. All these small touches are just so important, and they all work together so well to create a wonderful atmosphere. Speaking of, let's talk about the design. It is my suspicion that there was a rule set when designing both the Otherworld and the Neitherworld. It's my belief that in the Otherworld, all of the lines are straight, all of the rooms are to scale, people take up the right amount of proportions. Meaning, basically, when there's a shot in the Otherworld, you can see the ceiling, you can see the walls, everything is the size. Countered with, when you go to the Neitherworld, every object is curved, every outline is warped, and it creates such a juxtaposition between life and death that the atmosphere is brilliant. Physics is clearly void here. Discovery lies around every single bin, and at any moment one of the inhabitants could show up. The backgrounds perfectly encapsulate the surreal nature of the movies while also making sure they're all original settings that have nothing to do with it. The show is in a wonderful position thanks to its two-realm setting. It means the stories can utilize a classic sitcom playbook or a fantasy one, or just completely mix them. The plots can be as grounded or as far out as they need to be, and so the writers use it accordingly. Some are so outlandish they could only happen in a show like this to maintain any semblance of reason. In episodes where it's mostly in the Otherworld, I thoroughly enjoy Lydia and her pet ghost who haunts people, BJ. It almost feels like it's BJ's show when they're in the Neitherworld, and Lydia's when they're in the Otherworld. The dual character choice works like the dual settings, and that it just allows for so many more options. The duo are such a perfect match for each other to just riff off, one in their 50s, and one about 12, and the 12-year-old being the more responsible one makes it feel like a classic example of pet and owner. Lydia is constantly cleaning up after his messes, to which Beetlejuice will just never learn.
I want you to say you're sorry.
You're sorry.
Beetlejuice, just say it!
It's clear based off when the show aired and its reruns that it was not meant for fans of the original IP, but rather to be reimagined for children and adults completely separate of it. I cannot imagine watching this show growing up and then watching the movie as the same character. That would completely break my mind. However, that's a very real situation that a lot of people are probably now in. So if you have seen the show and then saw the movie, what was that like? Tell me in the comments. Being able to just watch this on a brick CRT TV with a bowl of cereal, I'm sitting in the living room on a Saturday morning, and there's just like nothing else in my world, sounds lovely.
This is ABC.
A.
All the gummy bears.
B.
Beetlejuice.
C.
Caterpillars. But yeah, I mean, this show aired in '89 on ABC's Saturday morning block. Still, this show isn't as dated as one might think. Fox aired it on their children's entertainment block as well, making it one of the very first animated shows to be aired on 2 separate networks concurrently. And then after Fox to Nickelodeon from '94 to '98, and then from '98 to the millennia on Cartoon Network.
You're watching Beetlejuice on Cartoon Network.
The show was massively successful, and yet I haven't met one person that's heard of it. It's not lost on me why this show came into my life when it did. Beetlejuice 2 just came out, and so Warner obviously needs some way to promote it. Enter Tubi, a streaming service where you can give them your old animation, they can air it for free, and get a lot of publicity for it. But honestly, corporate overlords trying to seduce me is nothing new. So I'm going to take my free 480p show and I'm going to enjoy it. I will say, in case you're wondering, Beetlejuice 2 is a kind of fun watch. It's a little less surreal than the first one and a little more American Horror Story, but it's fun. But if the show sounds up your alley, Beetlejuice lover or not, I'd highly recommend checking it out. The amount of time this poor 12, 13-year-old child is spending in literally hell is so upsetting. She needs either better friends or better support or something, because she spends so much of her living life in the dead life, she's going to get a whole musical number up her ass.